Hi, this is Bobby Brown, and welcome to another fucking podcast.
You kids with your loud music and your Dan Fogelberg, your Zima, hula hoops, and Pac-Man video games, don't you see? People today have attention spans that can only be measured in nanoseconds.
See, son, old legends never die. They just lose weight.
Like a legend and an out-of-work bum with a lot of life.
Hello, you crazy dead fucker!
Party time!
Yes, it is party time. Hello, Las Vegas. Hello, world. And hello, my loyal minions. It is good to see you, and it's always good to be seen. I am Izzy Presley, and this is another fucking podcast. Yes, no Paul Gargano, no Metal Edge. So it's another fucking podcast. Have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get into that with the boys from Junkyard, hey, if you're in Vegas, come down to the Hard Hat Lounge tonight. I am hosting an open mic, so if you want to get up and do stand-up comedy, come on down. That starts at 10. What else do we got? Make sure you guys hit up all the socials at Realizzypresley all the way across the board, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And of course, the show page is another effing podcast. If you guys do like what I do, please be generous. You don't have to, but you are more than welcome to donate to the what are they? PayPal is izzypresley@yahoo.com. Venmo is Real Izzy Presley, and the Cash App is $ Izzy Presley. And you guys heard the 10 bell salute at the top of the show. That is because we lost Mr. Gary Rossington recently, and that was like a week ago. I've got Chris Gates and Tim Mosher here from Junkyard, and let's hold on. We gotta crack one for the working man. And for Gary Rossington.
And for Gary.
Before we get it, let's talk about Gary for a second. We're all guitar players here. I mean, that Skynyrd sound, those guitars. I mean, come on.
Yeah, Rossington Collins, along with probably Mick Ralphs and Ted Nugent and Richie Blackmore, were like the guys that made me want to play guitar.
Oh, wow.
And back in the 70s, if a record company was trying to break a rock band, they sent them to the Detroit area, the Los Angeles area, and San Antonio, Texas. And if the band could make waves in those, because those were the rock cities, and if you could start drawing in those cities, then they would send you all over the rest of the country. So anybody who came to San Antonio ended up coming to Austin because it's only an hour away. So like I saw Skynyrd like 8 times when I was in high school.
Oh my God.
They were here all the time. They were awesome.
Oh.
And then we got to do like 4 months of shows with them in 1990, the first tour they did with Johnny on vocals. And that was it was mind blowing. Like I'd stand at the soundboard every night and listen to the set and go, I cannot believe these guys wrote all these songs in about a 3.5 year period when they were 20.
It's just
That lineup was everyone basically except, I mean, was Alan Collins on that tour? He did some shows? No, he had retired by then.
Yeah, he had already retired by then and been replaced by one of his buddies.
But it was Ed King, and it was Leon, and it was Billy,
everybody else.
And it was Artemis. Yeah.
That's right.
Part of the
Artemis.
tour.
Yeah, for part of the tour, right.
They had 2 drummers because Artemis got kind of messed up in the plane crash. And long story, but Artemis.
Please, we got time.
Well, we went into Canada. And they gave our merch guy wasn't going because we didn't want to pay the tariffs and stuff. And before we went into Canada, they gave our merch guy a locked briefcase and said, just keep this. And it had all, a lot of the guys in the band were still doing a lot of cocaine and the rest were smoking enormous amounts of weed. And that was at like 10 o'clock at night or 11 o'clock at night after the show. By noon the next day, they were having band meetings. And Johnny Van Zandt wouldn't go into the dressing room. He was hanging out with us all day. And they got on stage. They started playing their set. And about 4 songs in, Artemis got up, picked the drum set over, walked around the stage, flipping people off, went backstage, called a cab, got in the cab, went to the airport, and flew to Israel. At least that's what I heard.
Israel? Just randomly Israel.
Yeah, well, who knows? The details, I used to drink, so the details are fuzzy. But I do remember like leaving the drugs with our merch guy in a locked suitcase and quitting and losing his mind the next day. And
hold on, time out. You were in Junkyard and you drank?
Yeah, a little, enough to lose my privileges.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about this right off the top, because that's the reason we're here. You guys kind of reunited, and it was in Nashville, right? Because just before we get into this, just so everybody knows, so Junkyard has a roll of some dates coming up, and all those dates are at junkyardblues.com.
Yes.
And OOZE. And you guys are going to be performing the self-titled first record in its entirety. And Chris here, one of the OGs, is rejoining the band to do the set, but just the first record part of the show, correct?
No, I'm doing the whole set, but
you're doing the whole show. Okay.
Oh yeah. We're gonna do the whole album in order. And then we're gonna do some, near misses and close to hits from 6s, 7s, and 9s as well to flesh out the set. So it's a full hour and change set like we normally do. It's just the first part is just the first album in order, and then we'll do the things that people expect from the from 6s, 7s, and 9s as well. So they're getting the full boat of songs. But it happened in Austin actually. Last time we were in Austin, we went through Nashville on that run, but the second last show was in Austin, and we had gotten Chris and the band had been back in touch again, and we asked him to come and sit in and play some songs. It'd been a long time. I think we over 10 years, I think, is the last time we played together. And we had played together, I don't know, me and him for 10 years before that.
Something like that. The simple truth is I sort of stepped away from playing live music a little over a decade ago for health reasons and other stuff. Like, just couldn't really do it, not even locally. And it was just, I used my body like I wasn't going to need it this long. And so, my wife says that my body is a demolition derby car from the 90s, and I'm trying to turn back into a daily driver, and and literally I'm just now starting to play with any regularity at all, and so the timing was right, and it was fun to get back up and play with them. And I'm looking forward to doing these shows too. And who knows what intermittent things my life will allow,
Right. So Jimmy's doesn't have any Civil War reenactments to do. He's going to be back.
No, we're doing three guitar army. Speaking of Skynyrd, we're doing a 3-guitar army, which we have done before, only a little bit. One time we did 2 or 3 shows where it was Brian, Baker, Chris, and myself. Did a couple shows with Dangerous Toys. I don't know when that was, somewhere in the early 2000s, somewhere around there. But we have done the 3-guitar thing. And then we did it when he sat in and was like, oh, this is fine. You know what I mean? It lightens my load a little bit. So, I'm not too upset about it, Because when I joined, I replaced Brian because Brian was in Bad Religion. So I was originally playing all of what we call Brian's parts.
Right.
And then we switched and I started playing all Chris parts. And so my plan is to give most of those back to Chris while he's here to have him do them. So, let the originator play his stuff. So, but we have done 3-guitar thing, and we're pretty sage and wise musicians. We know where to sit out and how to shut up when needed. So I think it's going to be and it'll sound really fat too when it needs to. That's the other thing. So it's going to be great. So we did it. We ran through a couple things in sound check and did 4 or 5 in the show, and it just fell right into place. And that was. This idea had sort of been out there, it was always, like, it'd be cool to do the first album because it's considered a classic and all these other things. Like, okay, that'd be great. And we were always doing other things, and there never seemed to, be a time to do it. And we had taken a hiatus on the last year or so on my part. And so when the idea of doing shows came up and we had a couple offers, it popped. It kind of was like, hey, remember we talked about, and it'd be great to have Chris. And so that's how it all started. It's, there was no grand plan because we're really bad at things like that. But,
And coincidentally, we are coming up on the 35th anniversary of the release of the first record. So
is that right? Jesus.
Yeah. I guess 35 years ago this fall.
Oh, okay. So we can even claim it's the 35th anniversary. I wish we had known that before we started promoting it.
Before we did that's how organized
we did.
are.
Hold on. I thought it was 89.
Yeah, it was either late 88 or early 89. Once again, I did a lot of drugs back then. So
yeah, okay.
I don't remember. I thought it was 89, but it could have been 88. It might have been 88, Chris. I don't know.
Because 6s, 7s, and 9s came out in 90, and there's always a 2-year gap.
Yeah,
so,
I don't know. Who knows?
I don't know.
Well, according to Wikipedia, and we know Wikipedia is always correct.
It says 89.
It says 1989 Billboard 200 chart at 105.
Oh, not too bad. Not too shabby. Okay.
Yeah, anything's possible.
Simple Man reached the U.S. main rock chart at 47, and All the Time in the World off of the next record hit 24. Those are the two chart singles.
There we go.
Yeah.
Topper most of the popper most.
I'm just lucky that most of my life from that era is a Matter of Public record.
Yeah. Unfortunately, not in the U.S. Hot 100, which means no Casey Kasem introducing a Junkyard. So.
Well, we have you for that.
Yeah, exactly.
We have Izzy. So we're doing a California run, which is starting like in a week, I guess, a week from Thursday.
Yeah.
A week from Thursday, the 23rd, we're at Brick by Brick in San Diego with this California runs with Little Caesar. So Brick by Brick with San Diego on the 23rd, the Viper, our clubhouse on the 24th, the 25th, bottom of the hill in San Francisco. We're actually doing a cool meet and greet with that one where it's actually at a brewery, and you get a tour of the brewery, and there's going to be barbecue. I just found out, and me and Chris and Dave are going to do some. Yeah, and they give you, and I think it's free beer. I don't know how this is all working, but that's what I've been told. And we're going to do a few acoustic songs, me, Chris, and David, and then we're playing Bottom of the Hill later in the evening. Then we come back down south, and we do South Bay Customs in El Segundo, South Bay thing on Sunday. That'll probably be a slightly earlier gig. And then the five of us, Chris is not going. We're doing Monsters of Rock cruise with you, Izzy.
Yes.
I'm actually playing with Izzy on the Monsters of Rock cruise, Chris.
Don't say what song though, because
don't ruin it.
Yeah, don't, because it's I do this jam on the cruise. If people don't know this, and it's the cruiser jam, and I get the artists and the cruisers playing together, and I secure the artist, but I don't tell the cruisers who they get to jam with. So it's like they find out basically they find out right before they go on stage, because they look at the set list and see who they're playing with. But that way, look, I like doing it that way, because then they don't sign up to play with a certain artist. They sign up to play on the song they want to play on, Yeah.
So they know the artist is, right? They know what the artist, that the theme of the night is, right?
Yes, they know it. Yeah, because they have to know that, because they see all the songs.
So we're doing Aerosmith, and I will be performing an Aerosmith song with some cruisers and guided gently by Izzy. And then we come back, we go straight from the boat, and then Chris rejoins us for Cinco de Mayo in Austin at Austin City Limits.
Wow.
And then the next night we're in Dallas. What is the name of that? We just changed the venue in Dallas. I wish I could remember it. And then we are, but we're in Dallas the next night. Go to Junkyard Blues to find out, because originally it was this other add something live, and they switched venues. And then we are doing Cooters with our boy Will on that Sunday night. So as of now, that's what we have. So Chris is kind of bookending. He's doing the Cali run and the Texas run, and then we go on the boat. And so that will probably be slightly different. We'll probably do some of the first album thing, although we do a lot of the first album anyway. We'll probably mix in some stuff from we'll do some High Water stuff. But we got 2 shows on the boat, I know.
Yeah, I got to mix it up a little bit.
So we'll do 2 different shows probably, because we'll have kind of pulled them all together.
Yeah, well, maybe I could learn a song.
Well, get busy. If you learn it, you got to show me. So
yeah. Chris, so is there a reason you're not doing the cruise? Are you afraid of boats? Afraid of water?
That was booked long ago. Izzy, that was booked in like 21, believe it or not.
Yeah.
Well, that was before we'd even talked about this.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It was way, way long ago. And
right, but shit changes and fun shit could happen. I mean,
I know, but we're a little old to room together on a boat for a week, I have to tell you. So there's a limit on the spacing, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, just personally, I can't think of anything I'd rather do less than be locking up on boat for a week.
I was giving you an easy way out, Chris, by blaming someone
No,
else.
come on.
It's probably awesome. I don't know.
It is. It is. Look.
And then, I actually have this life thing that I can't just walk away from whenever I want. That may be changing, but right now, they expect me to show up. And
you can sit in the casino, gamble with Kip Winger. You think I'm bullshitting?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I know you're not. I've done it. I've seen it. Yeah.
I used to have a pair of his sunglasses.
You stole them fair and square. Yeah.
He left them at a photo shoot. And I took them.
Chris, how was it? How was it for you getting back on stage with these guys for the first time in 10 years?
It's fun. It's one of those things where it's like, stepping back into something that it's just like second skin,
Mm-hmm.
It was just immediately, playing with Pat and Todd and Tim, and just musically, like we did that a lot, so,
yeah.
Yeah.
And, the fact that we're all much better players now because we're not fighting with our inebriation to play songs that we wrote ourselves.
Yeah.
I guess, that was the whole thing in the late 80s and early 90s is how drunk can I get and still just barely pull off songs I actually wrote, and if you were too loaded to play, that was still colorful because we were in our 20s, but
right.
It's a little sad as things move forward.
Right. Or as Tammy would say, fucking rock and roll, Bubba.
Yeah. and in my world, it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. If you're over 30, pick two. Yeah, you won't pull off all three. And for me, it was like sex and drugs and rock and roll, and then it just like drugs and sex and then just drugs and
Well, did you? Obviously, you had to revisit the songs. You haven't played them in so long. Was it tough for you to relearn? Because there's some people. It's like fuck, I can't remember what I did on this. You know what I mean?
No, our songs. Like. When we were making the first record, Tom Werman told me, I can't tell you what you're playing is wrong because you wrote it, but it's a little weird,
Yeah.
and really it's just, I've been sitting down with the songs this time. Well, and actually not sitting down with the songs because it occurred to me, I haven't played 4 shows back to back in a decade. So I've been standing up with the songs, 75 minutes with wood around your neck. At least I can prepare a little bit. It's like jogging before the marathon.
Right,
but,
right. I know a chick like that. Hey, okay.
And there are moments in the songs where I have to stop and go, okay, let's roll that back and go, what happened there? What am I doing? But it's little details for the most part. So, of course, I live under the illusion that because I've played a song hundreds of times, I'm going to remember how it goes. So,
dude, trust me. I have an Ace Frehley tribute band, and I fucking, you don't know how often I forget Cold Gin, and I've been playing that song for fucking 30 years. It's like fucking whatever. How do I forget Cold Gin? 3 chords.
Chris, last time I saw Izzy, I sat in with his Ace Frehley tribute band. Ack.
Yeah, there used to be a band there was a band in Austin called Sick, which was just Kiss spelled backwards. It was Jason McMasters from Dangerous Toys and a bunch of other dudes from around town. And they were doing Kiss covers, but they were just doing like garage rock, t-shirts and jeans, whatever.
Yeah.
Like if Kiss had been playing these songs without any of the other stuff, and they were awesome. It was so good, and they were probably better musicians than the guys in Kiss.
Well, I take a little offense to that because I think Gene is a very, very underrated bass player. You listen to those first 3 records, some of that shit he was doing was like, damn, that, because you're used to the boom, love them, that shit. You listen to those
I've always said that Gene's a great bass player. Gene gets it.
Yeah. None of them are. They're all good. They're all really good at what they do, and it works really well. And that's what Kiss is what they do all at the same time.
Right.
There's they're a great example of like the sum of the parts. Because when they took out Peter, it never sounded right to me. I'm not trying to be the feel was so kind of weird in their own that when you take out I'm sure they realize that, and it's probably why they soldiered on longer than any other normal band probably would have with the original lineup. But they were a very idiosyncratic band, and it made sense for them. And now it's just a little more like, okay, they're a very good rock band, and when they originally had a very unique, they were not trying to, Peter. I said to someone else, like, Peter Criss wasn't trying to be Bonham. He was trying to be Jerry Nolan. He was a swingy, kind of jazzier guy, and that gave them it changed the feel.
It's that feel thing where, like, there's a lot of great bands with great musicians, and people can come and go, and you don't really notice that much. But like you said, like, the reason Guns N' Roses was never the same after. I mean, Matt Sorum was a phenomenal drummer, but he didn't swing like Adler.
Right.
Yeah.
He just didn't. And the band was stiff. It was stiff and not interesting after that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think, and actually Sorum has said that. He's like, I can't play those songs like that. I can't. It's like nobody can play those songs like Steven Adler. He just had a swagger to his playing. It's like nobody can play like that. Then you go watch Adler play with his band. It's like, oh yeah, that's how it's supposed to sound.
Yeah. It's really a thing. It's the key to why things start to not happen. I mean, I think it's probably partially one of the reasons you don't hear a lot of new Guns N' Roses music. It's like, I don't know if they know where to go. What is their actual pocket? What is their groove? They used to have a very identifiable pocket. Now I wouldn't know what it was.
Right. I mean, you listen to that pocket on Rocket Queen. I mean, fuck, are you kidding me?
Yeah, and it was very his. It was very his. I mean, that was kind of a sound like that. I mean, I don't know if it was Adler who invented it, but I used to call it like the stripper rock, like where he's riding the hat. That thing. L.A. Guns did a bunch on the first time. Pussycat did it. It was sort of that, Hollywood sound where you have the hi-hat going and then do a big rock group. There was big exponents of that. L.A. Guns had a ton of songs like that too, and it was very of that time. You don't hear it much anymore, so it's a kind of unique thing that they had. Obviously, they were very unique, and anytime you tear things apart like that, I am sure there was good reasons for it, and who am I to talk? But
and also, like, in a lot of music scenes, I think the bands that sort of form the core of the beginning of the scene, whatever it is, the ones that are good tend to be more idiosyncratic than great players. And the sum of the parts is amazing. And half of everything they do doesn't work very well, but the stuff that works well is unbelievable because it's new. And then another generation of people come along who are slightly less idiosyncratic and a little bit more better players. And by the third generation of people that comes along, they're all really great players, but they're kind of interchangeable. And and you go from Nirvana to Seven Mary Three, who's not a bad band, dude, but it's just not the same thing.
It's so funny that you bring up that, because that's the exact era that I had in my head. It's like how it just got more watered down, and everybody is.
Well, but the rock scene was the same way when it started. It was bands like us and Guns N' Roses and L.A. Guns and Faster Pussycat, and 3 years later it was a bunch of guys with straight teeth and nice clothes and big poofy hair, and it was all perfect. And who cares? It just was boring. Who cares?
And those people were more manageable personalities. I mean, you have to remember that's part of it too,
Well, that's the way it goes.
Is like, we're not easy people to deal with,
The crazy people start something. Yeah, the crazy people start this idea, and then the second generation of people come along and usually turn it into a huge success. And then the third generation come along and it's Pat Boone doing Blue Suede Shoes, and it's boring. And then new crazy people get a shot because it's boring. And something new changes, and that's happened all the way through popular music, since Elvis, and
absolutely.
But it's more of a guitar stylist than a guitar player, personally.
Scotty from Canada checking in. Sledgehammer is here too. That's for Scotty. And also, breaking news, ladies and gentlemen, this is hot off the press. Got the update on my phone here. Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Potsy Weber from the TV show Happy Days. You guys remember that TV show Happy Days?
Yeah, I love Potsy. Yeah.
Potsy is, I guess he's in a little trouble. The feds have busted him. It's a Potsy scheme. Potsy scheme. Yes.
I got it.
Yeah. It's the second Potsy scheme that works. But yeah, it's so funny. I mean, Christy, you talk about that era, and Tim, I know you were around in that era too. In that,
that's when I came up. Yeah, I was just. I don't know if I was a little. I was talking. I met Chris and David I think they were some of the first people I met when I got off the boat or off the bus, like in the Welcome to the Jungle video. I showed up in fall of '86, early fall, and I was living in that same, shitty part of East Hollywood. I don't know how I ran into Chris, but we did. We crossed paths, maybe because we had similar tastes, and there was a couple places you would just go. This thing called the Sound Check, where you could go, and it was like a Sunday night kind of song pull more than like a thing like you have to sign up and maybe get up to play on the gear and things like that. We were trying to do that, and Chris was there, and maybe we just went up to him because I was from DC, and I kind of pulled the punk card because I saw him with the big boys in DC, and we just became friendly that way, and that's when I started to kind of know all them. And then I knew Brian actually out here, though I was friends with the other guys in his bands back home in DC in the punk days. And but he was out here, and ironically that's how we sort of ran into Chris, because he was living down on the beach with his old band Dag Nasty down south, and he had come into the shoe store in Melrose I was working on, as one did, which was the Happening shoe store, which was owned by the guy who managed LA Guns. It was that kind of a thing. And so he came in and was putting out flyers for his band Dag Nasty, and we started talking, and I said, you should move up here. And he did. He was like, I broke up the band and moved into Hollywood. He moved in, and I think, 2 weeks later, he ran to Chris at the 7-Eleven, and he was in Junkyard. So that's how.
Yeah, we got signed. And when the band formed, David moved here with the bass player and drummer from the band he was in LA. And
Austin.
No, with the guitar player and drummer from the band he was in Austin. I'm sorry, I used to drink. And we put the core of the band together, but the guitar player that moved here with him wasn't very good. It was not. He loved music and he put everything into it, but he didn't have a lot of innate musical talent. And when we got signed with him in the band, and then we did a showcase for Werman, who I wanted to work with on the first record. And Werman said, I would love to work with you guys. That guy can't be on the record. And David and I had that conversation because I'm not a great guitar player. I was hoping to get a great guitar player and just play rhythm guitar over here in the core, write songs and stuff. And so band got together, we talked about it, we let Max go, and we were just getting ready to start doing auditions. And I was at my girlfriend's apartment, and I walked around the corner to the 7-Eleven and ran into Brian. I hadn't talked to him in 3 or 4 years since me and Brian and Lyle Pressler from Minor Threat were trying to put together the first version of Sam Hain with Glenn Danzig. And
right.
Wow.
And asked him what he was doing, and he was in town, and I knew he was a great guitar player. And I said, hey, I live right around the corner. Why don't you come over and listen to what we're doing? Do you want to be in a band? And it was like, we didn't even end up auditioning anybody. I just ran into my buddy at 7-Eleven and put him in a band. So, and he was the perfect guy.
Yeah. What did he think of the music you guys were working on at the time? And was it like, fuck yeah, I fucking dig this? Or was it?
Well, yeah, I mean, he had moved up to Hollywood. He had broken up Dag Nasty and moved up to Hollywood because he wanted to play in a rock band.
Okay.
That's what he told me, why he told me he was in Hollywood. Yeah, I wanted to play in a rock band, And so, worked out great. And, our band, the initial lineup of the band with me and Brian and Clay Anthony, we basically had 3 bass players, because I started out as a guitar player who switched to bass and punk, and so did Brian. Mm-hmm. And we all fell in love with playing as a part of the rhythm section with the drummer. So we would argue over who had to play the solo, because we were all wanted to be Malcolm. And so we just had this really, really, when the 3 of us were playing, with Pat, it was so locked in, because we were all thinking like bass players. And so
right.
Well, which was, made things a little different.
You know what I love with this whole story, though, is the producer said, I want to record you guys, but not with him. And I think that's something that's missing in the industry these days, is because anybody can put out a fucking record. There's no, not a lot of people are working with producers to tell them what to do, how to do it correctly, and go, yeah, this guy's terrible. He can't be in the band.
Well, and he would have let us keep him in the band. He just said he can't play on the record. And we had known from the start that we're limiting what we can do, because literally he didn't even know what scales were. He was 13 years into playing guitars in bands, and he didn't know what a scale was. And he couldn't tell when he would solo that he was just playing notes. he couldn't hear it, and bless his heart, but
right.
I hated to have to replace him and not let him do the thing he wanted to do, but we couldn't limit what the band was going to do, and I wasn't good enough to pull it off on my own at all.
Right. Well, and there's the other thing too. So you can't play on the record, but you can be in the band. Well, how's he going to play the shit if he doesn't know what the hell he's doing?
Well, and it's and I agree with you. Like, we used to bemoan all the gatekeepers that are keeping us from making records. It's like, but Lord, those people would like weed out all the stuff that wasn't worth hearing. And now it's like I had a friend who said, like, at any given time, there's maybe 50 bands making really good music. And in 1980, there were 7,000 records released. And in 2020, there were 220,000 records released. And that's just the ones that got registered with SoundScan. And there's still only 50 bands doing something that's interesting, and so it's just very hard to find them. And I'm super glad that everybody's getting to play and they make their records and all the rest of it. But it's like, it's so hard to find anything that's interesting anymore.
Right. Well, I mean, look, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I don't want to be that guy, but like the thing that I'm looking for, most kids aren't doing anymore. Like there's no, I don't know how it is anywhere else, but in Austin, which is a very live music city, there has not been a scene of music driven by people in their 20s for 20 years. Like, the average age of the live music audience in Austin is in its 50s.
Yeah.
And so,
I think that's like that pretty much everywhere, though. I mean, the 8.5 years I was in LA, it's like the people going to shows were old, and the bands that were playing were old.
There's lots of people playing music, but the people who are doing really, really interesting things aren't doing it with guitars or even in music. Yeah. They're making videos, they're doing, I don't know what they're doing. And, I'm still looking, and there's still great stuff that comes out, that I haven't heard before. And, but, we're just sort of at that place where the world is changing away. I'm looking for the newest, latest buggy whip in the age of automobiles.
Right.
Well, I mean, shit. I mean, look at the other side. Look at the same thing in podcasting too. I mean, I started this show in 2013 and jokingly named it Another Fucking Podcast because everybody had a podcast. Now everybody does have a podcast.
Everybody does have a podcast.
Because anybody can have a podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's so many, they're trying to do what I've been doing. It's like, and it makes it difficult for me. It's like, how the fuck do you get guests when they get bombarded by all these people that have like 3 listeners when I have 9?
That's why
I know. I've been checking out some I've been checking out some podcasts in a certain area because I've been approached by somebody who really wants me to do it because I have a lot of knowledge in this area and I speak well and stuff. And I turn them on and I can't listen for more than about 2 minutes just because the production values are so awful.
Yep.
It's like, they're not even leveling the volumes between the awful recording of the guy on his phone and the guy with a half decent, USB mic in front of his laptop.
Yep.
And it's like I can't, this is making me insane. I can't even tell if the content's any good. And of course it's not.
Right. And then, look, and that's one of the things because I have a radio background, and is my audio perfect? No, but you know what to do to make it sound halfway decent. Like I said, Tim knows, like, have headphones. If they have a mic on it, awesome, because it's going to make it sound better. And you have a mic, which is, it's great. Yeah. It sounds fucking fine,
But it's that things change, and I mean, I have a friend who does stage production, and he's he helps run road shows that are coming through town and stuff like that. He's going like, dude, I can't remember the last time a rock and roll road show came through the arena that didn't involve a walker. It's like the bands that I grew up, loving, they're all in their late 70s, and they didn't live in this long either. And they definitely didn't plan on still playing music this long.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, fuck,
we don't have it on stage, but they're definitely using it around craft services.
My God, we just got off on the Blue Cruise, and I love that cruise. The band's on there. I'm watching, Oh God damn it. You are the woman I will always dream of. You
Jesus,
love from the start. I can't think of I introed them twice and I can't think of the name of the band, but I mean, they're all
Climax Blues Plan.
No. But it's like all bands from that era, like Alan Parsons and all these guys
15 years, 20 years older than me, and I'm 60.
The Love and Spoonful,
God, they were on it. Oh
yeah, and it was awesome.
I'd love to see them. I would have loved to see Love and
They're a jug band.
I love them.
They were playing sitting down in the 60s.
Yeah, right. And the Babies and all this. It's like this. Like the original members in these bands are a little longer in the tooth, but God bless them for still being out there and doing it and giving a young fucker 50, but give like somebody like me a chance that didn't get a chance to see those guys, a chance to see them in a beautiful community on a boat.
I remember very well when I was dropped from my second record deal, and it was like, okay, I'm 29, it's over. Fine, Moose out front should have told you. I mean, it's like. It's like, I'm 29. It's like, I mean, you didn't see a lot of 29 football players back then either. I sort of looked at like an athletic career. Like, well, now they're 45-year-old football players, and it's not that unusual. It's unusual. Well, and so I was like, do people now? You got to remember, the Stones had just gone out and doing that whatever the Steel Wheels thing in like what was that 90, 89, 90, 89. Whatever. And they were like in their maybe early 40s, maybe late 30s. And so they maybe mid 40s. And
I think it was mid 40s. They started in the mid 60s. So it was probably in the 40s.
Okay. And that was just like, whoa. And they were the first one to push it out. And I still was like, is it possible? So when we started coming back even again, which was like 2000-ish when we started doing Junkyard again, I still was like, I guess we can push this thing out. I mean, the Stones did 2 more tours since then.
Well, and, this funny thing happened when the internet really started rolling in the early 2000s. And really it started happening in the late 90s. And the thing was, like, pop culture has its moment and then it goes away and it's replaced by something else and nobody ever goes back to that old thing. Some people stay on it. And it was the guys that used to show up at the punk rock show going, this sucks, the Doors, dude. And like, but every youth movement of music is replaced by the next one, just wholesale replaced. You're over with. And maybe you're playing an oldies bar somewhere, but that's it. But by the time the end of the 90s rolled around, not only did things stop going away, but things started coming back. Because nobody in the 90s, like there weren't a lot of tours by bands, from our era, and if there were playing to 100 people,
Yeah.
Well, it became, I mean, the internet allowed us to find our people, or more importantly, for them to find us.
And it allowed for this connection that was never there before on a more level playing field, like an actual connection with the bands you liked. And so you got a little invested, and then so you'd go out and see them when they came through, and it just became this different thing, and then it really
allowed us to find foreign fans that we didn't know we had. They started to be able to find us. It was, I guess, that really was the change, despite how awful most social media is. The reality we have the fan base we do is because they could find us, and before that. You have to be very in the know,
Yeah, 37-year-old dudes who are married with kids aren't looking at the weekly to see who's playing in town and go, oh, I love this band, I'm going to go see him. But if it pops up in their feed, they go, oh, I love this band, I'm going to go see him.
Right.
And because bands like us and the bands that were existing at the non-arena level weren't getting the kind of radio hype and all the rest of it where it might have entered their mind. But social media allowed that to happen, and then these festivals and cruise ships and stuff like that where a lot of bands can't sell hard tickets, but you put a bunch of them together and it can be a financially viable situation. So
right. Well, I think we're at that era too where, sorry, I just wanted to make us feel like Jimmy was here.
Is that a Union and a Reb sitting together? Is that what that is?
It looks like it. I don't know. I just Googled Civil War. I'm like, all right, there we go.
That's pretty good.
It's Dwayne and Dickie.
Yeah.
But I mean, we're also at a time too where
Gary Puckett.
where there's a lot of people who come to the shows that they don't even know who's in the band. They just know the name.
Well, and that's, that's been happening forever. Like, I mean, in the 70s, there's like 8 versions of the Temptations, none with original members,
Right.
And, fair play. It's like, it is what it is. People got to make a living. And, they only know, I mean, I have a friend that was been playing in Fastball, and they were going out with Everclear and other bands. And it was like, the audience only knows the one hit, but we can have a career out of the one hit.
Yep.
And as long as it's 2 of us or 3 of us from that era, we can sell out these theaters. And, and they only know the one song, really. They're all waiting to hear the one song or the 2 songs that they know from when they were in high school. And they don't, they aren't like we were growing up, where we knew it, we scoured the record covers in the magazines.
Yeah.
It's just, they're just like, oh, I like this band. It's much more casual listener a lot of the time.
But, we were like, I was lucky to grow up in that MTV era. Yeah, I was in my teens, but I was lucky to grow up in that because you, like you said, you knew who the members of the bands were, I think in the 70s, there were a lot of like faceless bands where it's like, I mean, look at Foreigner. Foreigner's a faceless band. I mean, other than Mick Jones and Lou Gramm, I mean, who do you know from Foreigner?
Well, in the 70s, it was like literally like people have a hard time imagining this, where it's like you have the record cover and whatever information that happens to be on that. And you've got Circus and Cream and Hit Parader and whatever. If the band's on tour, you'll get some articles and you get a little information from that. You'll never see the band in a video or playing or anything. You'll never see them unless they come to your town, or maybe they're on Midnight Special or Don Kirshner's concert. It was just like this desert of information. So we just sucked up everything we could. And then,
even the biggest bands were faceless. And I remember watching my local news, and I guess it was Hotel California was the big record of the time. And, I know local news always has to have a slant or whatever. So, like, they're going to go cover the big rock show, which they would do. They would cover the Stones that came through the Who. And that's the only time you could see those bands if you couldn't get in, especially a little kid, because they let them film the first, whatever, half of a song with the local news camera. But their whole bit with this thing was they went to everyone in the audience, like, here we have the Eagles, so the biggest band in America. We're going to ask these people in the third row, can they name one member? And no one could name a single fucking member. Like, and I always thought like they were pretty famous, like Don Henley, Glenn Frey. Like, no one knew who the fuck they were. They were very faceless. I mean, I want to say Led Zeppelin wasn't like that. I think most people knew who Jimmy Page was and Robert Plant, but it was the casual personality of those. I guess probably not. They still call them Led Zeppelin. Yeah. Yeah.
If the band had hits on the radio, there's a pretty good chance that their big audience didn't really know much about the band. They just liked the song.
Yeah.
If you were searching out the bands because they weren't on the radio, but you love that kind of music, chances are you knew who everybody in the band's name was. Mm-hmm. It's because there's a level of, it was, it's like with punk rock, it was sort of like, how did we even find that in 78 and 79 in Texas? And how I found it was, a couple of little articles in Cream magazine, seeing the Ramones by accident,
Oh, wow. You saw the Ramones by accident?
I was hanging out with a girl who had just moved to Austin, who worked at the same Burger King as me. And she and Joan Jett were buddies in high school. And when the Runaways came, they came with the Ramones. And so we went to see the Runaways.
Yeah.
And then I saw the Ramones by accident and was like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was 1977. I couldn't wrap my head around it.
How old are you when you saw the Runaways?
I would have been 16.
Oh, Jesus. That must have been heaven.
I grew up at the right time, and I started going to concerts by myself when I was 12 in 1973.
Wow.
Every single thing that came to town, I saw it more than once. I saw Bon Scott with AC/DC like 8 times.
Jesus Christ.
I saw AC/DC open for Judas Priest in about 1975. It was like, I saw everybody. I'm so grateful that I grew up when I did, loving what I love, and being close enough to San Antonio because back then, and I'm sure it's probably still the same, but in the 70s and 80s and 90s, national booking agents drew a line at 1 million people. And if your city didn't have 1 million people, they didn't even think about booking you there. And so a lot of the big acts never came to Austin. You'd have to go to San Antonio or Houston. And if they were playing Houston, a lot of times they didn't book San Antonio because it's only 3 hours away. So we would have to go to Houston or San Antonio to see the bands, the really big ones, or we just didn't see them at all if our cars weren't working that week.
Right.
So,
well, it's like I'm originally from Minneapolis or outside of Minneapolis. And it's like, yeah, a lot that's known as flyover country.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't stop there. A lot of them still did, because it was kind of a central hub for Wisconsin and Iowa and the Dakotas or whatever, because they're not going to go to South Dakota, but they'll go to Minneapolis because everybody will come from South Dakota, Yeah.
And we'll go to Minneapolis and then we'll turn south.
Yeah. Especially in the goddamn winter. Scotty from Canada saying, proud to be part of that Fine Nine. I love it.
Fine Nine. What's that mean?
What's that?
The Fine Nine? What's the Fine Nine?
I said the 9 listeners I have, not the 6.
Oh, okay, good. Few the proud, the 9.
Timmy, you have any stories like that? Bands that you saw by accident?
I mean, I saw AC/DC by accident when I saw Kiss on the Love Gun tour. I think it was Love Gun tour. I was one of the first gigs I went to, probably the first. And I remember it very well. They were playing the Cap Center, which was like the big, enormous dome, horrible place. There's a lot of footage from there because it was one of the first places like the Houston Spectrum that had video cameras and stuff.
Okay.
And so you'll see, a lot of times you'll see like 77, 78 footage of Kiss. It's at the Cap Center because they had the cameras. And I remember they had like the jumbo screen in the middle, and it was so like, they didn't even tell you who the opening band was. And they put up on the screen, opening tonight, Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band. Everyone, woo! And then they just took it off, said, correction, AC/DC, and everyone booed. Like no one had ever fucking heard of them. And I was 12.
Yeah.
And I had terrible seats, and I was next to the guy who had the tinfoil on cardboard for his Bad Ace Frehley. You couldn't do the costumes as well back then. It was really hard,
Yeah,
so,
without the internet, it's real hard to get the parts.
It's hard to get the
right.
And then all of a sudden, and I had no idea what AC/DC was, and they came on, and I was just so struck by, because I'd seen Elton John, and that was all glitz and glamour. And Kiss is, of course, all this. I knew what to expect with Kiss. It was going to be a huge. AC/DC comes on, and I remember, I didn't know who they were, but I remember looking at the guitar player and the bass player, and they were wearing like white T-shirts. Like they were just wearing T-shirts. And I was just so struck by that. Like, are they actually playing? I mean, what's going on? Are they really musicians? And then I just being like, the show was insane, and they did the bits where they ran around through the crowd, but they didn't have anyone run with them. That's like, you got on Bond's shoulders and you ran through the crowd, and I was just like thunderstruck. And Kiss came on and were fucking unbelievable, obviously too. It was an incredible show. Both were great. And I remember the next day I was like in my neighborhood, like skateboarding with my usual Rugrat friends. And one of the guys who skateboarded with me was this guy, Ian, who later formed the Teen Idols, probably not very long after that, really. And then later Minor Threat. Fugazi, he was a kid around. We used to skateboard together, and he was hanging with this other kid and with my big brother, who was a good skater. And I was just kind of like the little grommet lingering around. And they had all gone to the show. And I was just like so perplexed, like not really know what to think. And then so the guy goes, hey, what'd you think of Kiss last night? He's like, I thought they were good, but man, that fucking band, AC/DC, that opened, they were amazing. I was like, they were, right? He's like, yeah, they were great. Like Ian said so. So Ian Mackay is the guy I'm talking about. And I'm like, yeah, they were really cool. He's like, yeah, they're fucking badass. They fucking were great in that Ian voice. But, and then I was lucky to grow up in DC where we had our own little punk scene going on and tons of great rockabilly music and go-go music and all this kind of local stuff. Danny Gatton used to play down at this place on Tuesday nights, every Tuesday night, and you go into these 6 people there, and I'd watch Danny Gatton. So there's all these like kind of redneck jazzy rockabilly thing that I was really into, and then there was the punk thing, but everyone played there. So it was just part of a circuit. Like if you were a British band, you started in New York, usually fly in, or even the bands that were on the college circuit, whether it was the Replacements or Husker Du or whoever it was at that time, REM, or they would, you'd play DC, you'd play Philly, you'd play New York, and you'd cut over, maybe to Poughkeepsie, you'd cover Cleveland, maybe get Chicago, and they would just do that circuit down to Richmond. Maybe it would dip down into North Carolina, and they'd come back up. So I saw everybody. I mean, I would go, there was a club, the 930 Club. I think, Chris, you probably played there I don't know if the Big Boys played there. I saw the Big Boys open for Minor Threat and Trouble Funk it was an old department store, which was actually Minor Threat's last show, too, and Chris was on that bill. I was at that show, and I mean, I'd heard of the big boys for sure by then. The big boys had a rep, but I just lucked into a lot of things not knowing what I was seeing. I mean, I saw Minor Threat, I saw Anti-Nowhere League, Minor Threat, and the Damned on the Strawberries tour, and that was one of the still I think top 3 shows I've ever seen in my life. And I had no idea what the Anti-Nowhere League is. I thought they were fucking amazing. They were just so bizarre to me. And now if you look at it, bands in the late '80s all kind of look like Anti-Nowhere League with the vests and the fucking striped shirts and the kind of like the grunge. I mean, Zodiac Mindwarp just kind of had a longer hair version of basically what Anti-Nowhere League looked like, if you think about it. So
longer hair and guitar solos, and that was kind of
it. And so I was just very lucky. I went and saw everything. I didn't care if it was the Bengals playing at a club or whoever. I didn't care. I wanted to see. I wanted to see
the same
everything.
way. Like everything. Like I saw Springsteen for $2 on the Darkness on the Edge of Town tour. I saw everybody. And I started sneaking out and going to see local bands when I was about 10 because I grew up right by the UT campus. So it just saw. It didn't matter what it was. If it was music, I'm going, and saw everybody playing. I saw Devo's first tour. I saw the Police before the album came out. Wow. It was just like all of these people. It was so fascinating, and I just loved it all. And and I had my favorites, but I mean, my experience with AC/DC was much the same. Like when the first record I heard that came out, which was probably Livewire, and I was listening to it, but it was so different than everything else that was coming out because I love Deep Purple, but I'd also listen to some prog and some, I was a Stooges fan and all this other, but it's like I had a hard time wrapping my head around it. Like I think this is cool, but I'm not sure. And then they came to town 6 months later, and I walked away from the show going, "Oh yeah, that's cool. that's badass," So just everything, punk rock, everything, And
here's a great story on this topic from Jim in the chat room. Says, saw the Black Crowes by accident in Atlanta a few months before the first record came out. Last minute openers filling in were the Chili Peppers on the Mother's Milk tour. Just happened to be in town mixing the record, and the scheduled opener couldn't make it. Of course, then I saw them again when they opened up for Junkyard.
Yeah. Goes deep.
It goes deep. Really quick, you mentioned Zodiac Mindwarp. Have you ever seen Rob Zombie, the guy from Zodiac Mindwarp, and the guy from Manitoba's Wild Kingdom all in the same room at the same time?
No, I don't think so.
I think it's the same person.
Yeah.
I think it's the same person.
I love that first Zodiac Mindwarp, the first couple of singles and the album, and we got to do a couple of shows with them when they came to LA the first time, and they were one of the best British rock bands I'd ever seen because their stage show looked like they were an American band, because most British bands, the singer prances around and everybody else stands perfectly still, and the guitar player walks up to the front for his solo and then walks back. Even Discharge did that, but Zodiac Mindwarp, the whole band is careening all over the stage, and they were awesome.
So we got about how long we go about 10 more minutes. What are you guys up to now, Timmy? I know you just started teaching at, was it MIT?
Yeah, MIT. They don't let dumb people in like me. I mean, what I usually do is I'm writing for TV. I've started my own little music library, actually, too, but I still write for other libraries. I have a couple I have a new show coming on, actually an AEW behind the scenes reality show thing that I did music for TBS. It comes out on the, oh God, I want to say it's the 29th. I think it's the 29th on TBS. It's after AEW Dynamite, which this is all Greek to me. And then I did music for a Real Housewives spinoff called Ultimate Girls Trip, which is on Peacock on the 23rd. And so, but I write for other libraries. And then I just, coincidentally, I don't know how this happened, but a buddy of mine approached. I once got asked to come and speak at MI, Musicians Institute.
Hey, MIT Musicians Institute.
There you go. It almost works. So I've been teaching, and I've started teaching at MI, a business class of all things. But I had gone in pre-pandemic. They asked me to come in as a guest speaker. A friend of mine was teaching basically the same class I am, and he had me come in and tell my tales of woe of being a recording artist in the late 80s, whatever, and they circled back once they kind of regained their footing post-pandemic, and they asked me to come down. I mean, they actually, asked me to see if I wanted to teach, which was bizarre because, I barely got out of high school. which they know. I'm not hiding anything.
Yeah.
But it was very interesting. I had a job interview and I had to fill an application. These are all things I've never really had to do. So that was kind of cool. And they asked me to find my diploma. And I said, you realize that was like made on Sanskrit, basically. So
walk out with like the 10 commandments on the 15 commandments and you drop one. The 10.
It's not like there's a digital record of it somewhere.
Yes.
No, but believe it or not, I had to like reach out to my high school, and they had me they got me some kind of digital thing, and I was like, wow, all right. So I am teaching at MI, and I've just finished my second quarter. I have a break right before I have finals in a week, so then I literally go from finals to playing in San Diego, and then I'm writing a ton for television, the same old stuff, and I have Press Your Luck on ABC's, which will be out this summer too. So the same old stuff.
No whammies to that, especially on
no whammies.
No whammies. Chris, what are you up to these days? Just for people that may be curious.
Well, I am the director at a drug and alcohol treatment center. I've been working in the treatment field. I sort of wandered into it by accident about 11 or 12 years ago. I've been sober for 24 years, and I just have a slightly different way of approaching things. And I have the same fascination about some of the stuff that is involved in recovery that I did about music. And I just love thinking about it and talking about it and researching about it. And, I'm working on a book, and actually just hooked up with a woman who moved here from San Diego, whose background is in production at MTV and other places. And we're partnering on, I started putting out videos on a YouTube channel just before the pandemic. And then I got COVID and didn't have the energy for 2 years. And so I'm going to start doing a bunch of that stuff here in the next few months. And, cause she'll do the parts that I don't like doing, like editing and promotion.
Yeah.
So I can just create content. So that's, that's exciting, and, we'll see where it goes. But, yeah, my world is in the recovery and the behavioral health field these days.
And working on guitars.
Yeah. For fun. Yeah.
We were talking about that before we went on the air. So,
but I got a little thing I do called the Idle Hands Project, where I buy or acquire, people give me cheap, like Fender Squiers and, the Epiphones with the bolt-on necks and stuff. And I enjoy working on them. And I've taught myself to do fret work and all that stuff that I couldn't afford to get wrong in the past on my own guitars. And then when the guitars are playing really well and I'm happy with them and I enjoy playing them, I set them aside, and then I find somebody who lost all their instruments in their addiction, and I give them a guitar, so they can have something to do. So it keeps my idle hands busy, and it keeps their idle hands busy.
Is there people want to send you stuff, like send you guitars and shit for that? Is there a place that they can do that? Is there a website or anything?
There's a Facebook page that they can find if they want to find me on Facebook. But yeah, I'm so swamped right now with other stuff. Please don't send me anything.
I had Danny Coker from Counting Cars on in studio about a month ago, and I don't know if you ever seen the show Counting Cars on History Channel. But they got this thing on there where they'd be driving around Vegas and pull somebody over and, dude, let's talk about your car, and buy the car from them, like an old classic badass car, right? And the shows that he said, like, the show's done, they're starting a new show, and it's not really a buyer's market right now. I'm like, do you have people like just calling you, say, hey, you want to buy my cars? Like every fucking day.
I bet.
Every day. It's insane. He's like, hey, we can't, it's not a buyer's market right now. There's not in the works, so.
I have music in his show too. I see it all.
Oh, you
time,
do?
but, oh yeah. A ton of music in his show. Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, I'm all over. Yeah, places I had no idea where I am. I get my statements, and I know you're buddies with it, and I start saying like, "Oh, I do music for your show."
Yeah, that's very
News
cool.
to me.
So,
yeah.
If you guys want to get tickets, hit up Junkyard Blues,
Yes, please do.
BLOOZE.com, and that is for the run that is coming up, and that's why this worked out perfect, because it's starting in a couple weeks here. So
right, 23rd we're in San Diego, 24th we're at the Viper. San Diego we're at Brick by Brick. 24th Viper, 25th San Francisco at bottom of the hill. 26th back down here in the south land at South Bay Customs in El Segundo, and then back in Texas in early May 5th in Austin. So
I have
and
actually,
on the boat for you boaters out there.
and on the
yes.
boat. And actually, I've played a gig or two at the South Bay Customs with the Smoke and Kills.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And if you are in the Los Angeles area, you can catch Smoke and Kills on April 20th at the Universal Bar and Grill. So we will be out there. Mike Dawson and the Smoke and Kills. All right, let me hit the outro music here. Of course, I got Kiss outro music because what else would I fucking have? Tim Mosher, Chris Gates, Junkyard.
Thank you, Izzy.
Catch him out on the tour. Catch him on the
You guys
boat.
come say hi.
Please do. And you get your some bitches' asses up here to Vegas and play. Please.
Yeah.
Please.
We're
Please.
due. We're due.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
are.
We're due.
And we'll see you guys on the boat. Not you, Chris. But Chris, it was a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
You too.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for having me
coming on. And dude, come on anytime. And Tim pointed out that not the last time, but 3 years ago tonight, you were on the show doing a
I
Drunken
was.
Summit. You were on
Yeah.
once after that with Paul and I. Were one of the Metal Edge ones.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know the date on that. I don't know. I just made
Yeah.
this shit.
Okay.
All right. And if you're in Vegas, we'll see you tonight at the Hard Hat Lounge on Industrial for a little stand-up comedy fun. Catch me with all my great Potsy jokes. That joke is awesome. And we'll see you next week. We'll be back next Tuesday because I do have to get my ass rolling and putting out content again because we know it's all about the content. See you guys next week. And don't forget, what I lack in talent, I make up for in the cock.